I'm Bryce, or Bboe on Reddit. I am the author of praw, although I will say that before praw was praw, it was a different project called essentially just Reddit or Reddit API on GitHub. And I kind of took over from there and made it into praw and supported a lot of the API. There were a lot of people that contributed to praw along the way, but I've been working with it for over 5 years now, and recently did a lot of push to get out praw 4. And about 11 days ago, Busterroni made this really awesome tutorial for working with praw 4, one of the first videos out there for working with it. And it's certainly picked up a lot of attraction, which has been great to get praw out there and to get people interested. But I wanted to make this video in order to make a few updates to what Busterroni put out, because I think there are a few kind of, I would like to see people using some patterns that are a little more in line with the way praw would like people to program in. Of course, things work the way they are, but I just want to go through those things. So we're going to be working off, there was this initial submission to learn Python. There was also one to learn programming for this tutorial, and here's a link to the video, which I'll also link to in this video's description. So if we go to Reddit, this is the submission. And most of the content in this video is going to be based off this comment that I made about authentication. So where to store the credentials here, but also that how praw actually handles login. So I'll go through this. It'll probably be a little more, hopefully short. I just did a recording of this, but I didn't have my audio on. That ended up being a half hour, but I hope to do it quicker. So the tasks that I want to walk through, first I want to convert it for use for Python 3. It was written for Python 2, and so that'll make some changes. We'll walk through that. Use a more descriptive variable name, which is like Reddit instead of just R. Use a main function. Change the function bot login to authenticate to be a little more in line with the terminology that praw uses. Instead of config.py, use praw.ini. And then the last thing, just to kind of clean it up a little, is make it more in line with PEP 8. So we'll use the Flake 8 tool. So let's get started. This Reddit bot.py is the final source that comes from Busterroni. So if you go to his video and do show more, here's the code here. So I downloaded this py file and named it reddit.bot.py, which was the same name he was working with. So the first thing I have is, let's make it Python 3.6 compatible. So if I were to run this program as is, I'll show you that I'm running Python 3.6. So I run Python reddit bot.py. We see a syntax error missing parentheses and call to print. In Python 2, print was a function, was a statement, so it didn't need parentheses. They would have worked, but it wasn't required. Python made the print statement into a function, so now it requires parentheses. So this is essentially, in this case, as simple as adding parentheses to every call to print. Now, since I'm using Sublime, there's this great, I can select a section of text, and then I can do Command D on Mac to select all instances of that. And now I'm in multi-edit mode. Now I just messed it up. So let me back that up. We'll do it from here. Print, reselect, so I'm at the end of each one. I can then add parentheses, go to the end of the line with Command right arrow on my Mac. And add parentheses around all of those. Now I forgot it up here, so I'm going to go back in and add that. So all of my print statements now have that particular thing. I forgot to clean this back up. Let me go back to having config.py. I already put it back in the right format. So we want to make sure that this still runs. We're going to run it, logged in, obtaining 25 comments, and it starts commenting. I'm going to be using my PyAPY test user account. So if I go to overview, just now it made some comments about loving dogs, or also loving dogs. So that is, this program is actually now Python 3 compatible. And all it needed was parentheses around the arguments to print. Okay, so this one is done. Use Reddit instead of R. Much of the examples of prior to praw4 used R as the variable name. So what I'm talking about is when we create an instance of Reddit, it was common to see R as what the instance was bound to, the variable that it was bound to. I may have even been the one to introduce that pattern, but I'm going to call this now an anti-pattern because R is a non-descriptive variable name. If you're not familiar with praw, you have no idea what R is. And many people get the hang of it, but it's not a great name to use. So all of the praw4 documentation has been updated to use the variable name Reddit, and I would really like to see everyone use that as well. Of course, don't hate on someone for not doing it, but please do. And whenever I respond to people's comments, even if their example code uses R, I'm going to reply to it with using Reddit because Reddit is just a much more descriptive variable name. And I missed an instance on line 34 here. Okay, so I like to, as I'm testing things out, let's just pop over to my terminal, test it, make sure things are still working. We're good to go. Okay, so use Reddit as a variable name instead of R. Use a main function. So in busterroni's code, these 3 lines on 32 through 34, these execute at the top level of the program, which means if we were to want to use this run bot function, let's say in a different program, we would have some line in that other program that does import Reddit bot. Or maybe we have import run bot from Reddit bot. Or sorry, I don't remember my syntax. From Reddit bot import run bot. We could do something like that. We wouldn't normally do this in the same program, but this is just for an example purpose. So I'm going to just do some simple print statement debugging here about to run bot. Okay, now let's say we were to do this and we run it. Some weird stuff's going to happen here. So note that it says about to run bot, and then it logs in. Now, what's interesting here is let's do print prior to import. Okay, and run it again. Notice that it calls prior to import twice. And I'll even add a little bit more so we can discern where we are. I'm going to use a format string here. And I'm going to do __ name, which is basically the name of the current module, if I'm not mistaken. The first time that it calls prior to import, the module name is main. The second time, because we've recursively imported the same file, which again is not something we would ordinarily do, I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes, we imported Reddit bot. So the name of the module is Reddit bot. And then it's about to run bot. So it's about to run bot based off this import statement. And so the fact that I'm importing this program is running this code, when all I wanted to do was import this function if I was using a separate file. So if we wanted to protect against this code running when we import, let's put it into a function. And I'm going to call my function main, and I like to keep my functions sorted alphabetically, just to make it easy to find things. I'm going to define a main function and put all of that code inside of it. So now if we run, it actually only executes our debugging statements here, these 2 print statements. So it says prior to import for main, prior to import for Reddit bot, about to run bot, which is not actually going to do, because it's the last statement. So that's as a result of the import. And then the import statement finishes, and then it does about to run bot with respect to main, the main module. So that's great. We can now import this code successfully without executing code, but we still want it to execute. We want it to execute the main function when we run the program. So you'll see this pattern in a lot of Python scripts. If underscore name equals, so this is the name of the module. And if we're directly executing the program, as we saw, the name is going to be main. So we're going to do a comparison. If name equals underscore main, then we will call the main function. And if we run, then it works when we directly execute it. And if we were to import this to get one of its functions, then it wouldn't execute main. So this is a good practice to be in when writing Python script, to instead of putting all of your code in the top level scope, wrap it within a function and then conditionally call that function based on if you're directly executing this particular module rather than importing it. Okay, use the main function. Change bot login to authenticate. So this goes back to my comment that I made to busterroni's first post, which I apparently lost. Oh, here it is. Authentication. So here we see that there's a statement that like, we're about to log in, and then we initialize Reddit, and busterroni may not have realized this at the time, but at this point we're not actually logged in, or we're not more properly, we're not authenticated. Praw very much depends on lazy loading. And so at this point, all we've done is prepared the instance with the stuff it needs. But the authentication doesn't actually happen until you need to make a request to Reddit, Reddit's site. So for example, if I were to make my password incorrect and run the program, you'll see that it says logging in, logged in. Oh, we're obtaining 25 comments. We're already logged in. Things can go ahead. But then we get an invalid grant error processing request. And that's because when we try to iterate through comments, actually even fetching comments here, this is lazy too. But when you put that, combine it as an iterator, when you try to iterate over comments, then it actually goes out and makes a request. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rename bot login to authenticate, just to be more in line with the terminology for the OAuth authentication. And then I'm going to say authenticating instead of logging in, authenticating. And then to force it to actually verify that authentication worked, authenticated as, I'm going to use a format string again. And we're going to do reddit.user.me. So me is a method on the user attribute that will return an instance, a Redditor instance of the currently authenticated user. For script applications, you always have access to this. If you're using a different OAuth application type, like installed or web, you need the identity scope in order to use me. So this will output the name of the currently authenticated user, which will, as a result, it has to make a request to Reddit. So it will authenticate in order to fetch that. And if this succeeds, if this actually prints and doesn't raise an exception, then we can continue. So I still have the invalid password, and now we see authenticating, and then we immediately get the exception. And when I set my password back to the correct password and run it, here we go. Things are moving along. Okay, so change bot login to authenticate. So we've covered that. Use praw.ini. So the other primary thing that I commented on is that praw provides a configuration, a pretty flexible configuration config file called praw.ini. And this file can actually live in a number of locations. So if you go to the praw documents at praw.readthedocs.io, configuring praw, then there is praw.ini files. And this tells you where those files can live. For the purpose of this example, we're going to put praw.ini in the same directory as our script, which also happens to be the directory that we are working from. So when I type pwd, that's our present working directory or current working directory, I'm in temp. My redditbot.py file is also in this directory. So I'm going to move config.py to reddit.bot.py. If you're on a Windows machine, I think you have to type out MOV to move files, but you can do that using your file explorer. Not reddit.bot.py, sorry, praw.ini. And then we need to change the syntax of this file to be from Python syntax to ini syntax. So I'm going to open up praw.ini, and the first thing we need to do is define a section, and I'm going to call this dogbot. And this section allows us to actually configure multiple different bots in the same file. So if you have a global praw.ini file, like in the config directory, then you can put all of your credentials for your various bots in the same location, and then choose them by name, and I'll show you how to do that. Then we need to fix the syntax for all of these to be the key, which is username, password, client ID, colon, and then the value. And then because I like to be pedantic, I'm going to alphabetize these. You don't have to do that. Just a note, these are currently active credentials for the PyAPI test user 2, but I will delete those as soon as this video is made. Okay, since we removed the config.py file, we no longer need to import it. And then we can go to praw.reddit, and we don't need to pass any of this in. This is actually redundant. What we do need to do, however, is specify the name of the site as the first argument. So we called it dogbot. So we're going to say dogbot. And then I'm going to put this on the same line for now. We're going to fix some of this up later. And if we configure this properly, it should just work. Authenticating, authenticated as, and there it goes. So praw.ini, again, lives in the same directory. Definitely recommend using it. And close that. We'll go to notes. So these are all done, done, and done. So that's the all of the main changes to this file that I wanted to make. I'm just going to say, put a little comment here, updates by Bboe, which is Bboe. Now, I just want to show you one last thing, because I like to, for the praw examples, adhere to PEP8. So there's a tool called Flake8, which checks a few things in addition to PEP8. So you can do pip install Flake8. I already have it installed. Then we can run Flake8, and it's going to output a number of warnings for style-related issues. So we see block comment should start with #bang. So busterroni uses pound and then immediately started typing his comment. Flake8 would like you to, or PEP8 would like you to have a space between that. So we'll clean that up. Line 9 expected 2 blank lines. PEP8 suggests using separating methods with 2 lines just to help them differentiate from normal white space within. Of course, everything requires indentation, but this just makes it a little bit more readable. So we'll do that across. Unexpected spaces around keyword parameter equal. So line 12 has 2 of those instances, and that's for keyword arguments. We want to avoid using spaces around the equal sign if we're adhering to PEP8, which we're doing here. Oh, before I go down to that, so I'll run this again. I fixed that. Now we have a line too long, line 12, and also 28. So this is line 12. So what I usually do is I'll bring these down and put them on their own line to keep that shorter. Now the 80 character width, again, these are just suggestions. You don't have to follow them. All of the praw code, it does adhere to these, like the actual praw source. But it's up to your discretion as to whether or not you want to adhere to those. But I just want to show you how you can fix some of these things. Line 30, we also have a really long line. So this one I'm going to fix a little bit differently. This is a constant. So I'm going to extract this into it's a a constant in Python, which I'm going to name reply message. And then we're going to put this in the global scope because this is not going to change at all. Reply message. And we're going to save that. Now, reply message, I uppercase the entire name of the variable. And in Python, that's just a hint that this variable corresponds to a constant variable. So it shouldn't be changed. But there's nothing in Python that actually prevents you from changing it. It's just a hint to the programmer. So I still have too long of a line. So there's a couple ways you can break this up. The way I'll do it is by adding parentheses around it and then putting them on, just having, there's no plus or anything. It just spans multiple lines, and Python will automatically concatenate those strings. The parentheses are needed though because it wouldn't do it if they weren't all grouped as one argument essentially, or one. Well, this just says I'm dealing with one item between the parentheses. There's no commas or anything. Block comment should start with pound space, and then blank line at the end of the file. So it looks like I didn't clean that up and it didn't do it automatically for me. So that's running Flake 8 and updating busterroni's code to adhere to fix a few things to make it more in line with the other code you'll see in praw examples, and you might see from many people's examples of Python programs, and then Flake 8. One thing that I personally would normally do is use single quotes instead of double quotes, and that would also happen to fix this one issue. And then I personally also would not use string concatenation, but these aren't things that you have to do. So I'll use the format string syntax, or call the format method of strings to replace these with the arguments to format. And if we run it, oh, not that one, we will see that it continues to work. So the last few things I wanted to share. If you go to GitHub for praw, there's a link here for chat on Gitter. If you have questions, feel free to pop into the Gitter chat, and I periodically to answer questions. But the other great resources, as you may be aware of, are go there, ask questions, especially if you're learning Python. This is going to be your greatest resource. And then if you're confident in your Python abilities, if you get to that point, but then you have praw related questions, Reddit Dev is a great resource for praw specific questions. So that's pretty much it. I hope you've learned something from all of this, and happy Reddit coding with praw. All right, bye-bye.